I love rhetoric, man. And it's so fascinating because I've taught public speaking, and one of the things that I tell my students, which is true, you can see it statistically, more people are scared of speaking in public than they are of death.
Yeah.
I've had students tell me, just give me the F. It's like, why? Just give me the F. I
Really?
can't. It's like, I'd rather fail.
Isn't that amazing?
Than to have to stand in. And this is what I tell students. I say, okay, um, did you go to the supermarket? Yeah. Did you make small talk with the cashier? Yeah. So you've spoken to someone that you don't know. You're speaking in public. Obviously to a smaller degree, but what difference does it make you speaking to that cashier than you speaking to me? Right?
Yeah.
So we're constantly communicating and speaking in public. We just don't view it that way. We've all gone to parties or events where maybe someone that we know introduces us to other people and we start communicating, right? You're speaking in public. You got what I'm saying? So you this is something that you utilize. The only thing is that you're not viewing them as the same thing, you know? And in a way, just to I'll give you a spiel about education, right? And the education system. One thing that I'm a big proponent of is, and I don't know if this is the pedagogical term, but it's like taking a multidisciplinary approach to teaching. And what do I mean by that? You'll get a lot of students sometimes that will come into an English class and they'll say, "Well, I want to be an accountant. So what do I need to, why do I need to know this, right?" And one of the things that I find very important with students is when students come in and they'll look at, for example, if we're studying, I had a student one time that was having problems with understanding literary devices. And I told her, well, you do ballet, because she did ballet. Isn't that like a story that you're telling, right? Well, now interpret that as a story. What story are you telling? How are you telling it? What do these movements signify? Oh, I had never really thought about that way. You got what I'm saying? So when you look at architecture, yes, you are looking at architecture, but you're also looking at geometry, you're looking at history, you might be looking at theology too, because there might be some religious influence on the way that building has been constructed. So I think that as educators, if we were implementing these various fields that these students are already interested in, I think that they would respond to it more, as opposed to coming into a class and this is biology, this is chemistry, this is English, this is math, and they see it compartmentalized when actually everything is, everything
Wow.
is converged, as in, and is converging. So um, that's what I always try to do with my students, where what you're looking at, what's the saying? Oh my God, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You know, so it's
Big time.
going back to that axiom. Because I
It's
find that it's very
guaranteed.
important. Yeah, yeah.
I got to get you a copy of a book. I'd love for you to read it as an educator. Um, it's an easy read. It's by Napoleon Hill.
Hmm. I've never read anything by him, so this would be the first.
So
Book
he
I
did Think and Grow Rich,
read.
right? Before that was called The Law of Success. You can get like an original copy of that
Mhm.
online. That's before Carnegie and all these guys watered it down,
Yeah.
right? All the manifestation stuff. But he wrote this other book called Outwitting the Devil, where he interviews
Oh,
the
okay.
devil, but he's interviewing his own ego.
Oh, okay.
It
That's
is
interesting.
incredible, and he has a whole section on the education system in there.
Mhm.
This is like right after, this is before World War II, I believe. Yeah. And as an educator with your background, I'd love for you to read it and see, because what he did was after he wrote this book, he put it in a safety deposit box. And it wasn't until years later that his family and the Napoleon Hill Foundation, which is local here,
Mhm.
released it. So I need to get you a copy of that. I'd
Oh, that's
love for you
interesting.
to read
That's interesting.
his idea on the educational system.
Mhm.
It is something.
Yeah.
Might be some gold nuggets in there.
Yeah. That sounds fascinating, man. Because again, I see that once even in my classes, once I start integrating the interests of students, they start connecting to it more in a way that they probably wouldn't have connected to it before. So I think that could be a good motivator for students to actually care about, and look, even I'll use myself as an example. When I was growing up, I hated math, right? I joined Freemasonry, and now you're hitting me with sacred geometry and arithmetic and all this, and now I'm like,
Numerology,
oh my god, I
I
wish I knew math.
know.
Like I wish I knew math. I wish I had paid attention.
Yeah.
And even for me, I mean, you're introduced to the Pythagorean theorem, right? And then they tell you, oh well, Pythagoras was a mathematician. Okay, but Pythagoras was so much more, and in a way, I feel like that so much more was equally as important to his developments in mathematics, right? As him just being simply a mathematician, So I think that all of these are areas that we should be sharing, obviously to different extents, right? We don't have to go, off the rails. But I think that these things are important just because that could spark something in an individual that'll be like, oh, that's my vantage.
Did you ever see the Disney cartoon they did with Donald
Oh,
Duck?
Mathemagic Land.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna put that in our video.
yeah,
I'm gonna put that
Mathemagic
right after you
Land. Yeah,
said that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
clip that in, man,
yeah.
where he's got the freaking pentagram
Yeah,
on his hand, and
His
they do the
pals, a
different.
fraternity
Yeah,
of
and he
eggheads,
goes to
known as the
I
Where did
believe he
that
goes to a
Pythagoreans.
come
cave, and
from?
then it's
They used to
yeah,
meet in secret
and
to
then he has
discuss
like
their mathematical
Like, is it
a
discoveries.
Greek chorus or something. It's playing on
Only
lyres,
members
and
were
then the
allowed to
lyre teacher.
attend.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
I'm
had
gonna
a
clip that
secret
in.
emblem,
Yeah, that's so good.
the pentagram.
Oh my god! They
Yeah,
got the
yeah. He's like that.
Let's see what the topic is for
It's
today.
funny because that was actually my profile picture for a while on Instagram. It was Donald Duck like that with the.
I read somewhere, I can't remember again, it's probably in my 20s. I was lucky, my grandfather left me an incredible library. Um, and what I read was in the school is like you couldn't speak for, I don't know how many years, but like every year you would get one of the lines. And then the next year, if you didn't speak, you got the next line.
You're talking about Pythagoras's.
The
Okay,
Pythagoras
yeah.
mystery school.
Right.
Right. So if you were an adept, so if you didn't speak, you would get your first line, then your second, and through the years, so as you came in,
that is so cool. Right. That is so
it's
cool and very
incredible.
meaningful.
And then you get the circle, which means then you can walk through.
That's
That
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And really, you earn it.
Big time.
You earn your
Big time. Can you
initiation.
imagine being in your
mysteries.
5th year and they're finalizing that? And what I find interesting about that symbol too is it's very, if you were to follow it, if you were to hook up some sensors to the brain and follow, it's very complex. It's like the first thing we learn as a kid. Remember? It's amazing how it transmits.
Yeah,
right?
and
then you got Venus.
Yeah.
Right?
And you have to contemplate.
Every 8 years it lines up with the sun and the earth, and it hits all five of those points.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's it makes me think of it's contemplation. You're sitting there in silence, you're contemplating, you're earning the information that is being transmitted to you. So that's beautiful. I didn't know that.
I don't know if it's true.
Well, if it is,
but it's pretty good.
It is good. You earn it. That's what I'm telling you.
It sounds like it sounds logical enough that that's what they would do.
Right.
And I often wonder if we could go back. Let's say we had a time machine and we could go back and visit all the mystery schools, like really go in, look at the. It's got like the guy cutting the bull's throat.
Oh, Mithraism.
Yeah. So if we could go back in time and we could like jump into these.
Those are referenced in the Scottish Rite degrees a lot.
Yeah. I often wonder, as I've studied the mystery schools going back, which one would you want to check out first? For me, it would 100% be the Pythagorean school, man.
For me, immediately I think of the Eleusinian mysteries.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's just the first one that comes to mind. Either that or also the even though I don't really know if they were they had to have been a mystery school, but the Roman Collegiate, I just find very fascinating. They were Masons, Roman Masons that would meet together and share information. So I find that interesting. But number one would probably be the Eleusinian mysteries. I have to say.
It'd be interesting to see if they had
the Orphic rites, man. The Orphic rites would actually be really cool to see.
Yeah, they all have that death and resurrection ritual.
You are dying, you are being reborn, and now you essentially have to It almost feels like generate a new world,
Death
create
does
a new
no
world.
longer have a hold on you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all those ambitions, all those, it's like, when you go through a ritual like that, and most of the time you were dosed, right,
Mm-hmm.
with like ergot or something
Mm-hmm.
that pops you out, just like you go to South America and do.
Right.
And when you pop out, man, when you come back,
Yeah.
you are a different person.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I often wonder, in America, will we ever create another mystery school like that again? Will one of those ever come back? Like a real,
Yeah. Hard line, like more. I don't want to say like strictly observant, but like more. Yeah, just a hard line ritual. No holds barred.
yeah,
Taking it back to the basics.
yeah, it'd be pretty amazing. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, because that really emphasizes the elevation of consciousness.
Could
You
you
know.
you imagine you're an initiate and you enter in through like the paw of the Sphinx
Mm-hmm.
and you go down and you see this hallway. I mean, it is and all you see is this little light
Mm-hmm.
at the end of this hallway, and it's a tunnel that goes to the Great Pyramid, right? Because you would enter in. There wasn't an entrance.
Mm-hmm.
That entrance that everybody goes into. The guy that broke in, he broke out. That's what that is. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't locate it. You know what I mean? So you can imagine this initiate, and you can read about this ritual in Saint Germain's uh, Trina Sophia. It's like my
Oh
favorite
yeah, yeah, yeah.
text,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you're following this light, but as this initiate is going, there are priests hidden in the roof,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're passing these statues, which were probably illuminated. They have a way to illuminate things. And as they're going, they're talking to them like a haunted house. As they get in, they get in, they get in, they get into the first chamber. Maybe they get dosed,
Right.
right? And then they start moving through the chambers before they get into the king's chamber. They lie down. That that frequency hits. Not only are you dosed, but you're hit with this frequency that pops you out of your body, right? And then when you come back, you're probably taught something. And then when you exit, how different
Right.
is that human?
Right. Well,
They can
now
probably lead a country.
it's interesting because you also think of and it goes back to communication, right? You are communicated something, but then there are also things that are communicated without being communicated, right? Because now in being an initiate, you have responsibilities. I know this information, right? So as your awareness increases, your responsibilities also increase as well, right? So it's like now you're an initiate. You have been initiated in this mystery school that teaches you the ideal state, whatever that might be, right? Literal or figurative. You have this information to create harmony. Now go out into the world and create harmony. You have that responsibility now because you've been given this information. And if you deny it, right, it's almost like that situation. What is it? Hercules went through the same thing, right? Where he had to choose vice and virtue, right? And you know that on the path you have to choose virtue. There's a responsibility to that. So that's what that makes me think of. You go through an initiation, you are taught all these things. This message is transmitted. Now you have to go out into the world, and you can't transmit it um, to the T because people have to be initiated, but you can do it through your actions, through your labor, through the work that you're doing. So it's profound, because again, it makes me think of as your awareness is increasing, so is so are your responsibilities as an initiate.
Daniel Molina, how you doing?
Everything's good. I'm enjoying my time here in Arizona. First time in the state. First time hanging out with you after so long speaking to you online. So it's super cool to finally be here and have a chance to just hang out.
What's new?
The biggest thing that I'm doing this year is taking writing a little bit more seriously. I've always been a writer where I've written short stories, I've written research papers on masonry and things like that. But this year I'm undertaking two big tasks. I'm going to try to write a novel. I have an idea for a creative novel. And then I also want to write a book on Freemasonry. I've been giving lectures for a long time on different topics. I'm interested in different topics related to Freemasonry. And one thing that people always ask me, or brothers always ask me when they see that I'm giving lectures, they say, okay, when is the book coming? You
Yeah.
know, Jamie even asked that. He was like, "Oh, this is all cool, but when is the book
When's the
coming?"
book coming?
So I've kind of been pushing that and kicking the can down the road. But now I'm actually going to take the project seriously, and I'm going to try to write a book on it this year. So hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be able to have that ready to go.
Oh man, that's fantastic. What's the goal of the book?
Well, the goal is primarily, and maybe this is selfish for me to say, but it's for me to learn, for me to
Nice.
be able to put all of these ideas and these connections that I've been making um, with Freemasonry, to put it into perspective, to put it in a rational way, right? So for me to be able to organize that, and then second, I noticed that there are other brothers and other people that aren't even in the fraternity that are interested in some of my research. So it's going to be super cool for me to be able to be an ambassador to the fraternity in such a way that I can release a book, have people read about it, and then learn about the craft, learn about why we're so obsessed with it,
Yeah.
and why it's so important in our lives. So I think that those are the two major reasons of why I'm doing this.
Oh, fantastic. How are you enjoying your time here out in Arizona?
Oh, this is awesome. This is awesome, man. I'm loving it. I know I need to even
Having
though I'm
some good
leaving.
coffee?
Yeah, I love it. Even though I'm leaving on tomorrow, I do intend on coming back and staying a little bit longer just to be able to hang out more with you, with the brothers, and do a little bit more sightseeing. But I love it so far.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely plan when you come back to take you up to Sedona, check that out, and then down to Tucson to show you the library we were just talking
Yeah,
about.
that's something that I would definitely love to go see.
Mainly, what I'm doing with this podcast is I'm going to be interviewing 100 people, and the most important question I want to ask is, how can we better communicate as human beings?
How can we better communicate as human beings? Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and I guess we can talk about two separate things, is the study of rhetoric and media literacy. I feel like, especially when it comes to the information that we're receiving, the information that we are putting out, a lot of times it is uh, pathos related, if we will. It is as a result of pathos. So it makes me think a lot of the ancient sophists, right, and sophistry, who were more focused on either winning an argument, or coming out on top, as opposed to actually um, reciting information that was useful and that was pertinent to society. So I think that the study of rhetoric is something that is very important to us, not only for us to be able to better understand the information that we're receiving, but to also ultimately become better communicators, to be able to express ourselves better, and to be able to not be impulsive, right? Because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of information that we receive um, through the media, and what I'm talking about is books, the news, even films and things like that, the media as a whole. I think a lot of times what it uh, incites is an immediate reaction
Yeah,
that then can lead to our downfall. So it's I think that the study of rhetoric and people becoming more knowledgeable about media literacy could actually help us take a step back and try and truly understand, okay, what information am I processing, how is it being disclosed, and why is it being disclosed, and what's the ultimate goal of it. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's what
yeah.
my answer would be.
What is rhetoric? We're not really, at least in my education system that I grew up in, that was something that word never came up.
Hmm.
That's something we weren't taught. Really, I got introduced to that in Freemasonry,
Yeah.
right? Staircase.
Right.
Can you kind of, what is rhetoric?
So rhetoric is something and the study of it is very important in my life, because I'm actually a teacher. So I teach English at a community college. And as we know it, we have the three divisions of rhetoric that were proposed by Aristotle. So we have ethos, pathos, and logos. Now, ethos you can look at as the ethics, right, or the ethical component. So, for example, when somebody is doing public speaking, what do we usually start with? An introduction of who this individual is, what they have accomplished, what their titles are, if they published anything, how long they've been researching a specific subject. because now you are establishing credibility between the speaker or the writer and the audience. So they have an understanding of, okay, this is why I should be listening to, this message that's being transmitted. Pathos is the emotional component of it. So I always give an example to my student of that old those old commercials with the Sarah McLachlan song
Yeah.
of the dogs.
Oh,
Where they're
those are
telling you
brutal.
donate
Oh
this
man,
this
they get
amount of
you. Yeah.
money. There's music, there's imagery as well, where you're seeing these dogs that are in need, they're suffering, and as a viewer, you see that and you emotionally respond to it. You say, "Oh, I'm not gonna just donate $5. I'm gonna donate $10 because I wanna help these dogs." So they're kind of pulling at your heartstrings. And then logos is the logical component, right? Logic, and that's really where you see, okay, I see how the individual or the speaker or the writer is taking me from point A to point B to point C to now the end result of the argument. However, it's also interesting to note that there is a fourth component of rhetoric that a lot of times I haven't really seen explored in academia, and that's actually kairos.
Okay.
And kairos teaches us the right time to say something, right? And it comes from um, this idea of an archer having to shoot an arrow through a small hole in a wall, right?
Okay.
And having to go through it. So it's interesting that, another an example that I use with a lot of students is obviously when we were younger, if we angered our parents, that's not the right moment to go and ask them for money. You got to wait until, they're feeling a little bit better, or,
Yeah.
things like that. So it's like the right time to be able to say something. And in a way, in a lot of our communication functions according to kairos, right? There's a reason why the punchline has to be delivered at a specific moment, right? Even if you're looking at um, initiatic systems, there's a reason why you are going through specific degrees, because they're ultimately building off of the information that you have been previously given. So it's a very that one is a very important um, component of the study of rhetoric. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I actually
That's going to be
have
good.
a presentation on rhetoric and Freemasonry, and it's looking at all of these different rhetorical. It's appeals, is what they're called, but they're also the Aristotle's three divisions. But it's looking at the different appeals and how we can see them in Freemasonry in different perspectives. Because then there's also the Cicero developed the five canons of rhetoric, which is like preparation, elocution. So you have to prepare and do research. You have to come up with the way that you're going to transmit the message. So you can think about it like, are you going to be using um, is it all just going to be oratory, or are you going to be using have any visual components if we're applying it to a contemporary setting and things like that? So we know rhetoric as Aristotle, what he gave us, but there's actually a lot more to the study of rhetoric that is very fascinating.
Do you think that's something that should be taught in school? What grade do you think?
Well, it's interesting because it's almost like our schooling system was designed based on the rhetorical system, where you see that people will say, "Oh, in grammar school, I went to grammar school here, I went to grammar school there." I never use that verbiage, so I say elementary school, but you see that there is, you know, uh, there's a grammar school. What is it? Grammar,
Junior
rhetoric, and
high?
logic, right?
Yep.
Grammar, rhetoric, and logic.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting to see that it's elementary school, middle school, and high school, and I think that that's something that I guess it should we should start prioritizing it maybe in high school, because by then we assume that the student will have the intellectual capacity to be able to understand how important these things are. But I think that the study of rhetoric is definitely important, because rhetoric doesn't just pertain to the way that we communicate, but we also communicate in other ways that is not verbal, right? We communicate through imagery, we communicate through the way that we dress, the way that we market ourselves, I guess, if we're speaking in marketing terms. So communication is all around us. And if people just understood how to communicate and how to understand and receive communication, I think that we'd be able to better understand ourselves. Just to go back to the other question that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn in communication.
Yeah.
There's a ton. Like, I'll even tell you, like, right now as you're talking, one thing I'm keeping in mind that I do when I talk with people and I'm communicating is I'm the guy that does this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. My head's just like,
Yeah.
right. So I've learned not to do that anymore. I'm consciously, when you're talking, I'm trying to chill,
Right.
and I'll give you 3 nods, like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's just communication.
Yeah, yeah, and communication is so powerful because it even transcends time. You know, just look at all the varying interests that we have that are uh, related to Freemasonry or Masonic adjacent. You know, we're a lot of times we're reading texts that are, you know, from time immemorial. You know, but that's still communication that is passing down to us. So it's very fascinating just to see how even communication can transcend.
I love the line, transmitting.
Right, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know
Yeah.
where that's from?
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's great.
transmitting. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah, it is so true. Like, I would not be the person I am without all those old writings left by the old alchemical chemists
Hmm.
and their diaries.
Hmm.
You know, that's my favorite thing to read is their diaries.
And it's even important because you can look at the obviously the information that's being relayed, uh, but also we're looking at the way that it was written, the way that it was structured, even the shape that the text takes, right? So even look at all the different dimensions of communication that we're studying, that is important for a reason, because sometimes in those studies there's information there that is pertinent to our self-development or whatever it is that you're looking for. So even something like that is important. So yeah, the study of communication it's important.
That's what I'm hoping for this podcast.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's also how we understand each other, because it's different perspectives, different ways of viewing the world, different ways of interpreting information, and that's how you learn. You
Yeah.
know, that's how you learn, by viewing these films, reading these texts, learning these languages, understanding. Even look at translations of different texts, right? Even translations are important, because one word that's off could completely
Yeah.
change the meaning of a text. You know, so it's important.
You know, we're here in the year 2025, and we live in a time where we know that everything physical, everything, including our bodies, even our blood, these light bulbs, the wall, everything is made of molecules. You know, and as you break that down into atoms and quarks and hadrons and massless gluons and ultimately light seems to be some type of energy that keeps us all in harmony. You know, as an individual, having a human experience, as you look out and you see this dynamic movement of material that even some say we're creating with our own consciousness, that we're all collectively kind of creating this environment together right now. As an individual, when you look out, what is this to you? You know, what at this moment in your life, you know, what's going on?
My immediate reaction is to say impermanence, and I feel that that's something that people also struggle, where they think that their self is static and permanent, but it's actually impermanent. And what is it? I had a brother one time that told me the only permanent thing in life is impermanence. You know, and I think that applies to all of this. And I think that a lot of discord, a lot of tension, and a lot of contention comes from people clinging to certain things, right? Whether it be material things, whether it be titles, whether it be an image, things like that. I think that creates a lot of discord, when really this is all drastically changing from day to day. We're drastically changing, and to be honest, in 100 years, this might not even look the way that it looks. Um, I think I don't remember. Don't quote me on the actual philosopher. I think it was Heraclitus who said, "You don't step in the same river twice." you know. So it's kind of it's kind of interesting to think about that, you know, where like now is now, but now is now, and then now is now, and then now is now, you know. So
Yeah, I
it's not the
know,
same now, if
man.
you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
You know, so it's interesting to think about it that way. So I would say impermanence.
Everything is moving, everything is changing. Even in meditation, even when you become perfectly still, that word is still there because it's not a static piece, it's a dynamic piece. So even in deep meditation, let's say in the astral field, that word is still there. It's amazing. Watching a podcast the other day, and this I can't remember the name of the podcast, but he said something that's just been on my mind the past 2 weeks. And he said, you know, what if this, he used these two words, conscious simulator.
Conscious simulator. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
He goes, what if this is just a conscious simulator?
Right. Yeah. That's Plato's cave right there.
That's pretty good.
That's Plato's cave. How do you break out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only way is to detach from the material.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard. It's hard. You know, going through COVID, I think a lot of people experienced that. You know, a lot of people lost their jobs, lost their income, had to sell everything off. And that's something we were talking about earlier and I've seen that with the group of people and the friends I hang out with. There's the attention isn't 100% on the material. It's their attention is starting to spread out into spirituality now. And
well, because I think that, and this is something that we kind of touch on when we talk about Stoicism, where, you know, if you lose something that's material, and obviously there's value in that, there's meaning, there's obviously distress in that, but ultimately, I'll give you an example. So one of my friends was going to a school of dentistry, and she had failed a major exam that she needed to take. And she came back to me. She said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. I failed this exam, and you know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to take it again." And I said, "Well, then you're in a great position." She goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, now you're taking an exam that you've already taken before, so you are prepared to take it. So you're one up over every other person that's taking it for the first time." She said, "Oh, you know, I had never really thought about it that way, you know." And I think that it comes down to that. We cling to the material, to the material so much that it almost feels like when you lose it, you lose yourself, you know. And I think that during COVID, that was something that was very difficult for a lot of people, because you were forced to communicate with yourself. You couldn't go out and kind of distract yourself with the mundane things of having to go to work, and then I drive back home, and then I go to the gym, and then I go to sleep, and then I wake up the next day to have to do it again. You know, now I was at home and I had to figure out, well, who am I? Why is this making me tick? You know, why am I getting angry? What is the cause of this anger? How can I change that? Oh, I want to change it. That means I want to be a better person. How can I be a better person? And now you're having a difficult conversation with yourself that then leads you to spirituality. So that's the way that I would interpret that.
100%.
Yeah.
Brother Daniel, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Hope you had a great time in Arizona.
Yeah, I definitely did, bro.
Can't wait to have you back.